This now senior political analyst and New York Times senior political correspondent Maggie Haberman and former associate counsel to President George W. Bush, Jamil Jaffer. Listen, this is the interesting thing my source is saying. The notion that this shouldn't be birthed for political reasons doesn't align with the justice system. You have to go when you're ready. There are statutes of limitations and other factors that force them to move in a time that they have to move. And, Jamil, Fani Willis could actually go first. If there are indictments in multiple jurisdictions, they can coordinate the court dates because defendants often face indictments in multiple jurisdictions. So Georgia could actually end up going first. So that whole argument about why is this first, what is it? They're saying it doesn't really matter. And Michael Cohen is saying similar there in that interview.
Right, I think that's right. Now, look, in this case, New York has a 6-year statute of limitations when it comes to fraud, criminal fraud. And so there's a real possibility that the reason why this happened now is because they're out of time.
But that was paused in 2020 by then Governor Cuomo because of COVID. And it was also Trump lived out of state for 4 years, so they have more time. I don't think he was rushed by the statute of limitations.
Interesting. So if that's the case, then the question is why bring it now, right? Is it that does raise these questions about politics, right? Georgia, of course, concerned about their litigation. You've got the New York State Attorney General. You've got a variety of things going on around the country. Of course, the federal investigations into January 6th, as well as the Mar-a-Lago documents. There's a lot going on. The challenge, though, politically, is the president's going to say, look at all this stuff going on. It's all these Democrats coming after me. I'm the victim, which is a story he's played out during his entire time in office and since he's been out.
Well, it's also something that, to be real about it, Alvin Bragg sort of gave him that when he was campaigning for this office. He spoke in stark terms about the potential of prosecuting Donald Trump. So you are going to hear a lot about that in the coming months, and it's not surprising that you would hear a lot about
it's sealed.
that.
It's
he did it here on the set.
What's in there, yeah.
But Alvin Bragg did that here on the set. He came and did an interview with the two of you, and he said essentially, like, stay tuned, and basically did indicate that something could be coming here.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I mean, it's less surprising that he did it once he was in office to some extent. It was surprising to a lot of people in New York who have a long history with that particular office, where one man sat in that district attorney's office for decades, Robert Morgenthau, who P.S. Donald Trump considered a personal friend, and told me in an interview in 2021 that Morgenthau would not have stood for this kind of thing, which I think is really important in terms of Trump's mindset. But Bragg, during his campaign in 2021, spoke openly about the possibility of prosecuting Donald Trump, and I think you'll hear more of that. To Don's point, we don't know what the charges are. We are not going to know for several days. So some of this is just waiting on it.
Can I ask one other question about your reporting yesterday, which is that as this was coming out, there were people who worked in the Trump organization that were quietly cheering this, you said.
And by quietly, I'm sure they were loudly on their end of the phone, but were texting me. And there was a long trail of people who feel burned in one way or another by Donald Trump. We certainly saw that in the White House. This was a pattern that existed for decades before at the Trump organization. And the number of people I heard from yesterday who worked for his company who were really happy. One person texted with the words "wonderful news."
Really?
I mean, that really sort of tells you something about where these folks' heads are.
I was fascinated last night as, Caitlin was on the air. I'm listening to her. I'm reading your reporting in real time on the Times about what's happening behind the scenes at Mar-a-Lago right now.
Well, like we've said, they were caught by surprise.
Yeah.
I think some of Trump's advisors learned it from me and my colleagues that this was happening. I think they recalibrated quickly. He's very angry. It should not really surprise anybody. I don't think that means that he's throwing staplers, but I think he's really angry. Everything that you were seeing in his statement about how this is, a political persecution or a political prosecution, I think is something that he genuinely believes. And I expect that it is going to be said with greater degrees of intensity. There's so much, I just want to stress, we expect, or it's likely that he's going to surrender on Tuesday. They're still working out how that's going to look. This is not an ordinary defendant. He comes with a phalanx of Secret Service. This is going to require multi-agency protection. He's not just any other defendant in reality. And so because of that, what the lead-up will look like, I think, is really also
And they're so coordinating. Listen, you bring up a very good point, and Caitlin asked you about your reporting the people who have been affected. And that's, there are other cases, right, in the documents case, right, and just other cases. There are many out there, a number out there. But look at this. David Pecker, who's a witness. That's Karen McDougal, the catch and kill Hill, Dylan Howard, who worked for Pecker, Deborah Tarasoff, who is also testified, worked for Trump Org, Jeff McConney, the assistant comptroller, worked directly with Alan Weisselberg, Donald Bender, the accountant there, who worked for Trump, Kellyanne Conway, of course we know, who worked closely with Trump, Hope Hicks, who worked closely with Trump, and then Michael Cohen. So many people have been affected, and Robert Costello as well, by this former president. Great reporting. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Jamil.